Hello. This is Christina Barr. Welcome to Black Tea News. Hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit about Donald Trump in Michigan last night, same time, as the debate was going on, the second GOP debate, which, if you follow me on social media, you know that I thought it was kind of trash. And some people disagreed, but most people seem to think it was a hot bucket of just mess, just a hot mess. So it was too much yelling over each other, too many people there who shouldn't be there, and it was just not great. But there were some moments, nothing like amazing, um but they were good, substantive back and forth, sure. I didn't find it as entertaining though. It was more frustrating than entertaining. The last debate, there was like back and forth and chat and digs at each other and all that stuff, but it was entertaining. I thought this there was some problems, some issues. So um I've got a couple clips about it. May go more into it also tomorrow, but I got a couple clips to show you guys as we talk about it. There's also another disappointing interview with Donald Trump as far as the pro-life movement. So I want to show you a snippet that's going around now as well. So that's basically will be our show for today. But before I jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blackteennews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blackteennews.com/donate. Cost to stream, cost to run my website, all that stuff. So if you can support in that sort of way, I very much do appreciate it. If you can, there should be a link in the description, or again, you can just go to the website and go to the donate page. You guys can also check out different merchandise that we have available at blackteennews.com. Got different mugs and different shirts that you guys can check out, like these Life Wins and Roe and Casey boarded shirts and stuff. So you guys can check out some of that stuff. It is the fall. We also got these pumpkin spice mugs that I made, and you can either get that for somebody and trigger them, or someone who will appreciate it. Either one, I don't care. Just go ahead and just spend some money. You can go look at those and get those at blackteennews.com. Also check out my stuff on Amazon. I have, middle grade chapter books. I have all sorts of stuff I write about demon hunters and historical fiction, fantasy, and inhuman queens, and all kinds of stuff, wherever my imagination will take me. But I do have some nonfiction stuff, like, of course, God is Blatantly Against Abortion, which is available on Amazon and is also available on Barnes and Noble. So go ahead and check that out. It deals with theology, it deals with rights, it deals with politics and all sorts of stuff. So it's a very diverse book on the topic, and it's from an important perspective as well. Some people are like, why do you bring religion into it? Because someone else always does. So you might as well know how to defend your opinion, or at least the ethics that are behind it, that a lot of people do agree with. Like, I really don't think you should have to be a Christian to think that it's wrong to kill another human being. And then you just take it from there, I suppose. Hello to everyone in the chat. Thank you for being here. Thank you for chatting. And those of you who will watch back later, appreciate you. I see you. Before I jump into everything, I do have a video that is funny, that's unrelated to the topic at hand for the debate stuff. But we talked earlier this week, I believe, about Bob Menendez, who was indicted for bribery charges, and he had a bunch of money in his house. He had gold bars in his house that they found. And so he actually made a plea deal. I saw it. I didn't read into this deep into the story, so we haven't covered. I don't think we've covered that. I don't know if I mentioned it to you guys, but he some people were calling for him to resign. Even on the left, some people were calling. Now, if this was like swing state or and like Republican governor, and there was a Democrat who's in the Senate, I don't think they'd be singing that kind of tune. But I feel like they feel like they could probably cut him loose. So they're like, well, let us do the right thing, and we can be the party that stand up for the right thing while Trump isn't doing the right thing. So I think there's some politics behind that. Some people on the right have hypothesized that they're only indicting him to make Trump look bad. And I'm like, well, he's been indicted before. It could just be that the investigation took a minute and he is actually corrupt, and they do want to get someone, on bribery charges when things are kind of so clear that he's guilty. So he's been indicted. I suppose they reached some kind of plea deal, but Matt Gaetz made a joke the other day about the economy and made a reference to Bob here. So that's why I wanted to give a little backstory before I let this video play. So someone took a clip of his joke and they put some Seinfeld music behind it. I think it's a good video. Sorry, I just didn't want it to go over everybody's head when I played it.
Valuing American money so rapidly that in America today, you can't even bribe Democrat senators with cash alone. You need to bring gold bars to get the job done, just so that the bribes hold value.
So, then he should have did an ad for Birch Gold, and then said, "I'm joining the Daily Wire." So yeah, I thought it was a good good joke. So anyway, that's in the news. So let's talk about the debate. So I watched it last night over my parents' house after we had like a Bible study, and we went into by the time that was over, then we had debate. I watched the debate at their house, and I would say again, it was a bit of a hot mess, and there were some good moments. Overall, a lot of people are saying that DeSantis won. As a matter of fact, the Daily Caller did a poll, and they're like, "Who won the debate?" And they had Nikki Haley, Tim Scott, Vivek, and then other. And other won by a lot, but it was pretty remarkable. I guess someone had to be in the other category, but out of Nikki Haley, Vivek, Tim Scott, why not push out Tim and put DeSantis there, or Vivek? Some people liked his performance. I thought he was I didn't really care too much. He definitely tried to reinvent himself a bit and took a step back. And I think most of them did. DeSantis wasn't he did a lot better than last time. Like a lot of people liked him before last time. I thought he was very awkward. Maybe there's still a bit awkwardness, but he was very on brand with his message. I did a good job in Florida. I already got the job done, and he was very clear in his vision and what he's accomplished, what he can do. And he also went at Trump a bit harder, especially for not being there. So I think he did win the night, and he made some compelling points. I think just to go through all of them really quick, Nikki Haley was very she comes off very competent, and what she talks about. She made a good pitch for school choice, though it was noted that she couldn't quite bring it home for her state. But she did make a good pitch for it. She talked, very competently about foreign policy and other things like that. But she had a back and forth with Tim Scott that was a lot. And then she scolded Vivek a lot over TikTok, him joining TikTok. And I don't have the clip, but she said, every time I listen to you, I'm dumber for it. And it would have been a great moment to, kind of like that's because you're comparing your intelligence to mine or something, and you realize you could have did a dig like that, but he was trying to um be nice, but it wasn't I don't know. I didn't think that was a great back and forth with Haley. Um but her and Tim Scott, they definitely set them up to combat each other, and they went at it. Um so I don't think she came off, she had good mom energy, like I'm the adult in the room, you need this kind of female energy to like problem solve and stuff. And there are moments when it came off a bit naggy, I guess. So I, she didn't do as well in my opinion, but still comes off very competently. It's very much seems like out of the non-Trump option, it's between DeSantis and Nikki Haley. And if the next debate was only those two, I think that would be much better. um Now Vivek, he totally like tried to reinvent himself. He was a guy who came at everybody before, and he must have realized that that wasn't that he came off very smug. And he was like, "Oh, I'm the outsider, and you guys don't trust me, and I understand." And he's, I don't know, listen to some focus groups or reads through the comments that people make about him who don't like him, and he's trying to correct that. But people were like, "Bro, we remembered what you said before. You can't just be like we're all good people when you said we were bought and paid for." So they still went after because they're like, "We didn't forget." And he still said some comments that like undercut them, and he was like, "Well, I don't want to do this name calling." But he was like, "They're all sick, they're all corrupted from this corrupt system, it's not their fault." So still a bit smug. But I thought he had some good lines, sure. um but I think and maybe I bias alert, I'm not a fan of Vivek. I think most people know that. um I just don't think he comes off really fake, and I think that is more abundant this time around compared to before. Um, Maybe people will disagree. Mike Pence needs to just go. He was very awkward, and he dodged quite a bit. Like they asked him about what he would do about Dreamers, and he dodged the question. And they even like they asked the question again, and he just dodged it again. And he dodged it and then attacked. Um, I think Elijah attacked at DeSantis, and maybe that's when they went to break. At one point, they went to break and didn't give DeSantis 30 seconds to respond. Like the rules are supposed to be when you're mentioned. So he has no shot, though his hair looks great. My youngest sister, she walked by, she's like, "I love his hair," which isn't new information. Um, but he has no shot at all. And whether he's there to, I don't know, stand up for his legacy or or be the one who stood up to Trump, or like I'm different from that guy, and or whatever, like we get it. He had a much stronger performance before. Um but he doesn't seem to like dodging the I was so curious. I'm like, why dodge the Dreamer thing? Are you planning on like, I don't know, amnesty? Is that a thing? Like, and they asked Chris Christie about that too, and he didn't really address it. Like he had an okay answer, but he didn't really address it either. So what are, like, everyone wants to secure the border. I believe everyone wants to secure the border and stop all the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people coming in. I believe that. However, I believe these people, all of them will maybe do something more about border security and fencing and walls, and I believe all of them would do something about it, do a better job at least than Biden is obviously doing right now. but what's going to happen about all these people who are already here? And they'll say like, well, we need to deport some people, but what are you going to do about there's a lot of people here, especially people who've been here for a minute, and maybe they still came here illegally. Are you still going to deport them all? Like, how are you planning to do that, to tackle that? What's your end goal there? Are you going to make an amnesty deal? And is it going to be a big amnesty deal? Because that's something that people want to know. And that's where people start getting really soft on the issue. So I really didn't appreciate Mike dodging the question. And he also kind of dodged a question about, well, he didn't kind of. They asked him, like, is Obamacare here to stay? The Affordable Health Care Act. And because he said it's more popular than ever. And then he like dodged and they brought it back. And he's like, I'm going to put all the money back to the state level. And I guess that's kind of his answer. He's going to try to gut everything. And Department of Education, all that stuff, just put the money back to the state level and let like state Medicaid and all those folks handle stuff. I don't know. It was kind of unclear. So if Mike is just going to do some angry bombs here and there, be there to be super awkward with jokes that don't quite land and insults that are like, yeah, I can appreciate sometimes like, oh, Mike bringing some heat, but they don't, they don't always land well. And then he's gonna just dodge questions. You don't need to be here. Just back someone else who you can stand, who you think will do a good job, because you obviously don't want Trump to be the nominee, but it's not going to be you, dude. It's not going to be you. So just leave. Part ways. Go. Chris Christie was there to be angry. Though he did, still like vendetta against Trump. I don't think Vivek was wrong when he said that's what he was doing. Though I thought he had some good lines and made good points last time, and he made some good lines and had some good points this time too. But he has no shot either. And it would be better if he also dropped out and backed someone who he thought could beat Trump. So they need to start narrowing the field. Tim Scott must have saw a lot of notes and comments about him basically fading away or being too quiet and not getting time. And they, I didn't love the questions they asked him, before. And he didn't have like a great substantive debate last time. So he came in with some fire this time. Like he was the one who called out Vivek for like, bro, we remember what happened last time. When you're here, you can't just like pretend that didn't happen. He came with some attacks against Nikki Haley. He came with some attacks on other folks. So he brought some heat, and still, he's not going anywhere either. I didn't like his response. I don't have a clip of this, so I guess I'll just tell you guys about it. But so the Univision anchored asked Ron DeSantis about his Black History curriculum, which we covered a lot on the show. Me and Savvy had a video where we talked about it. We went through a lot of different comments, the curriculum, etc. So if you want to go back and look at that video, I'm gonna still probably do like a detailed video about it. But there was a line that just talked about how slaves learned skills and could use those skills for their benefit. It's not a moral thing. It's just a statement of fact. It's just a statement of history. You can feel however you feel about it, but you're just being mad at reality. Now, Tim, well, they asked Ron DeSantis about it, and he just dismissed it straight up like it's a hoax. It's a hoax that was, by Kamala Harris. Because the question even said, well, you said that slaves benefited in spite of slavery. Yes, that's true. And she's like, but people are still hurting. What do you say to the descendants of slaves? And while he's trying to answer it, Tim Scott is like clearly trying, you can hear him as he's trying to butt in to rebut Ron as he's trying to answer his question. People kept doing that, like on like I gotta say something, I gotta say something, I gotta. Nobody's was worse than Doug Bergman, but Tim was like pawing as well, and so he's like, this is a hoax by Kamala Harris. You know, we got rid of like CRT, and you want to talk about descendants of slaves? Descendants of slaves, Black scholars wrote this curriculum. So Tim Scott responded and went in a spiel about how there's nothing good that comes of slavery, etc., or no redeeming quality about it, which no one is trying to make the argument that it's good. Um, and he went on some rant about how he's faced discrimination, and we all know that Tim Scott has faced discrimination, especially from the left, right? But America's not a racist country, and he really tried to make it a moment. I didn't feel that it was a moment. And I was maybe someone who was annoyed with DeSantis and the whole curricula thing would have been like, yeah, Tim Scott, take it to him. But I'm annoyed, and he keeps just trying to build and build and build. And he said that they should have just took the line out. Him and Kamala Harris, they should have just removed the line. So I posted this on Twitter. I was like live tweeting it as everything was going on, and I mentioned, which I've mentioned to you guys before, that his problem is with like Booker T. Washington, because Booker T. Washington has said this stuff. So I'm gonna just I had tweeted it out last night. I'm just gonna go to the tweet really quick and pull it up. But he's a book called Negroes in Business, and here we go. The Negro in Business, Chapter 1, Introduction. Right there. And the highlighted section, he was however very often skilled in trades which proved to be for him thresholds to business enterprise and a condition of freedom. The slave skilled as a butcher, for instance, after emancipation, often opened a butcher shop of his own. The skilled carpenter taught himself to read and cipher and became a contractor, and the skilled plantation poultryman in some cases gradually built up a trade reckoned by the carloads. So it's just the truth. You can be mad or have whatever feelings you want about history, but it's just the truth. And Booker T. Washington is far closer to this period of time than Tim Scott obviously is. That doesn't mean you need to take him as the gospel truth, but there's one is just kind of common sense, and two, there's just examples of it. So trying to dunk on DeSantis about it, I don't know if he really feels like he has to. Maybe he was genuinely offended by it. Maybe he feels like that he has to do it as the resident Black person there. But I mean, it's not as bad as like Trump having like a bingo card that says like Ron defends slavery or something. But I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So to me, that moment of him trying to be like, "Yeah, America's great. I'm Black," it didn't come off great to me. And last person to mention was Bergman. He said substantive things. Everyone would get their turn, like saying stuff, and he'd be like, "Well, you guys are missing the point. The point is this," and then he'd say something that's like, "Yeah, that makes sense." So I'm not gonna say he didn't add anything, and some people are like, even said that Ron won and Doug won, or that one of my subscribers was like, Ron and Doug Bergman both moved up in my eyes. That's fine. But he is the one who's like polling at the bottom, and he was aggressive and he fought for his time. He did, but it was pathetic and a bit annoying, in my opinion. It was too much. Too many people were talking over each other. At one point, Dana Perino like threatened to cut his mic, And I was like, cut his mic, man. Like, it's too much. Like, there were moments when you couldn't hear what people were saying because too many people were talking. Too many people talk, especially like when it was like Nikki Haley versus Tim Scott, and then like while they're going at it, or when someone was going at it with Vivek, you'd have Ron in the middle just trying to be like, bring it back to like, come on guys, this is childish, and the American people deserve to actually hear what we're saying. Like, that happened like quite a bit, and it was a lot. It was really a lot. So let's go through some of these moments that I have pulled up. One, like the last debate, there were good jabs or digs and jokes and stuff. Like the chat GPT thing about Vivek was great. They had some great digs at him. Pence had some good digs or whatever. I'm like, Pence bringing the smoke, but and I didn't feel like anything really landed too good here. And they tried it with Trump, and Christie made an awful joke. Awful, it's awful.
We've got to bring law and order back to this country, and not just in our cities, but we need law and order back everywhere. We need law and order back in our suburbs. People are threatened there. We need it in our rural areas. People feel threatened there. And we need it in Washington, D.C. also. And Donald Trump should be here to answer for that, but he's not. And I want to look at that camera right now and tell you, Donald, I know you're watching. You can't help yourself. I know you're watching, okay? And you're not here tonight, not because of polls and not because of your indictments. You're not here tonight because you're afraid of being on the stage and defending your record. You're ducking these things. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You keep doing that, no one up here is going to call you Donald Trump anymore. We're going to call you Donald Duck.
All right. And he made an ad. Like, yeah, got him. No, bro. That was awful. Like, as I was watching and I'm kind of predicting what he might say, I thought he might say Donald Trump, right? Which isn't like incredibly unique or anything, but it rhymes. And the Donald Duck, because he's ducking, it's just, how old are you, bro? We're laughing at you, not with you. But the whole I know you're watching, was he though? Because he was kind of busy. That doesn't mean he's not watching sometime later, or he's not watching clips, or somebody's not going to show him something, or maybe he won't watch himself on the plane so he can write some stuff about it on Truth Social and go at people and make fat jokes about Chris Christie. Like, he might watch it later, but he was in Michigan. And the debate was streaming the same time of his rally. So no, he probably wasn't watching you right there in the camera, Chris Christie, listening to you call him Donald Duck. He's probably either on stage at that moment or taking photos with all these people who got VIP or who wanted to see him. So to be in for the obsession of just coming at him and take him down. I thought he said some things that, that were digged at Trump, that things that people needed to hear and last time around. And I thought his digs at Vivek were good. And but now it's like, dude, it's the fall. You're not going anywhere. And Dana Perino made the point that, that the longer you're all in together, the more likely he's going to win. He's far above everyone in the polls, if you believe the polls. Even if you don't quite believe the polls, he's probably still ahead. So what are you guys going to do? If you're all in there, because this is what happened in 2016. Trump did not win a majority. He had a plurality of the vote. And he will continue to have that if people don't drop out. So whatever vendetta he's got against Trump or whatever, the goal for him not to be president, you're not helping at this point. At this point, not really. So the Donald Duck thing wasn't really great. There was a moment at the end of the debate, like the last question was Dana asked, she brought up the fact that there's too many people in there. And so she asked them, She's like, who should be voted off the island? And people laughed, and it's a joke. And then she's like, now pull out your note cards and actually vote. And it was a pretty wild moment. Which DeSantis like shot it down. Now my initial reaction was Bergman, because I was very annoyed with how he interrupted the whole time. But I think Nikki v. DeSantis, they're the two of the most viable, with the chance, I suppose, who really seem like they're really in it to be the alternative option. So if it was just those two going forward and we go from there, that would be fine with me. But if they want to stay in and fight, that's their prerogative. But let me just show you the clip.
You on stage tonight should be voted off the island. Please use your marker to write your choice on the notepad in front of you. 15 seconds starting now. Of the people on the stage, who should be? I'm absolutely serious.
With all due respect, I mean, we're here, we're happy to debate, but I think that's disrespectful to my fellow competitors.
Nobody wants to participate.
Let's do some questions. Let's talk about the future of the country.
I'll answer. I want to be clear.
Let me ask you this.
If I may.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
Then if you won't answer that question, let me ask you this one.
Yeah.
What is your mathematical path,
Yes.
Governor DeSantis, in order to try to beat President Trump, who has a commanding and enduring lead in this race?
So polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents.
Right.
And we're going to take the case of the people in these early states. We're going to do it in a state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not getting a mulligan on the 2024 election. Republicans have lost 3 straight elections in a row. We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've got to choose right. We've got to win. And we need somebody that's going to be able to serve 2 terms. So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
Governor Christie.
So pretty compelling case there, like from Ron, saying, one, the people will make the decision at the polls, so don't try to force people out. It is annoying. People everybody should just drop out and give all their money to Trump. Just because Trump is the only even if he was the only nominee, that doesn't mean that people want to give to Trump, because he's paying a lot of stuff with his legal bills. Okay, so there's a lot of donors that are still gonna be like, well, just go ahead and fail, bruh. If you're the nominee, I'm not giving you money for your legal bills. And they are spending on legal bills. It's just the truth. And some of you will be like, well, he needs to fight his legal bills. They're all coming for him. Okay. So some people are like, that's your mess. You pay for it. You got money. Though that fraud case going on in New York is pretty bad for him, and that could be a huge ding to his assets. But or they'll, he's just so far ahead, just drop out so everybody can just rally around Trump, and we need unity, etc. I'm like, if you I hate when people are like, we need the unity, and but they're still saying the trashiest stuff. Like the war with the DeSantis people and the Trump people and the influencers, and is just awful online. But it's awful coming from Trump. DeSantis will hit him with substantive policy disagreements or whatever. But Trump retweeted Laura Loomer talking about DeSantis being on the spectrum. And he's all buddy with Laura Loomer, who accused his wife of faking cancer or exaggerating it. And I already mentioned the bingo cards with Ron defends slavery. So, if we want to all come together and be a big Republican family and, have these minor disputes and then come together, don't be a jerk. Don't be a jerk. Vivek, as I said, tried to reinvent himself, So I am gonna play a clip that's from like a DeSantis pack thing, but just because I didn't have the time to find the two clips of a comparison. But they did a comparison of the last debate because Vivek was like, everybody's bought and paid for. That's what he said last time at the last debate. And he said other things about the candidates, but he alleged that no one is sincere because they're all bought and paid for. And in this debate, he was like, these are all good people. We don't need to sling mud and stuff. And the people weren't having it. But here's just a little side by side.
Bought and paid for, so I can say this. In the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage.
So, very short snippet that they put together. So people weren't having it. And Tim Scott came for him and other people. There's like, we're not going to memory hole it. And so he had the spiel like, people see me as like the know-it-all, and I'm trying to evolve, and I'm learning, and I'm growing. I can change my mind. I've changed a lot during this campaign, which I guess he has to say that because he's flip-flopped on so many things. So people can just explain it as, well, he's taking in new information and he's changing his mind. People should be flexible, except when they get new information. That, I can respect that, but at the same time, you do want someone actually rooted when they're the leader and leading a party that has a particular ideology, and you have to advance policy. You can't have someone who's gonna bend with the wind, I suppose. So to me, that's I can respect someone changing their mind on things, sure. But I don't want to elect someone who is very uncertain and then very sure that they're certain of things that they are not certain of. He did talk backstage. He said a little bit of this stuff on the debate stage, but he's still coming for his opponents with this kind of rhetoric.
I get that the other candidates had both debates, I think, an allergic reaction to an outsider coming in from a different generation. I don't even hold that against them. I think my views have changed a little bit since when I started this campaign. I hope that's allowed. I'm 7 months into this. Initially, I might have taken that a little personally. I think I'm past that now. As I've gotten to know some of these people, I think these are good people who have been tainted by a broken system. And I think my anger and my frustration is now less directed against any one of those candidates, but against that system, that broken system of super PAC puppetry. A lot of what you saw was a charade with super PAC puppet masters telling candidates what to say. That's not even the fault of good people on that stage. Some of them are being exploited by that system. And so we're in this to change that actual broken system, which puts me in, I think, a different headspace than candidates who are slinging, clever insults at one another. And I think I'm done with that phase of this campaign.
So he's done with that phase of the campaign. So, in other words, obviously, you don't switch up things unless it didn't work out. So, must have got some notes from people and decided to correct. And you do have to correct on a campaign. That's true. Self-correct. So, good there. However, still undercutting everyone and saying they're just victims of the broken system. They're good people. They're just like slaves to their donor. So it's still pretty much saying they're bought and paid for. So he's a pretty special guy, and I don't mean that in a complimentary sort of way. So just stop, man. Just stop. You don't have to, if you're gonna try to come off like the better person, just try to be the better person. Like, and that was just what DeSantis was trying to do. Like, he wasn't trying to get in the tit for tats back and forth. Like, they hurled some things at him and he had to like push back, but he more just defended his record and stuff. He didn't really get into, digs like that. So if you don't want to engage in that way, you don't have to engage in that way, and you can just take the higher road. But trying to look like you're taking the higher road and not actually taking the higher road just makes you come off as insincere. And that's why Nikki Haley and other people are just like, we can't trust you, which they brought up like Vivek and his deals in China and other stuff like that, which he had to defend. I was surprised no one brought up his drug company um uh in the Alzheimer's drug. And he'll well, I guess I want someone to ask him is when he went on Kramer show to talk about the drug. Because he had bought a failed Alzheimer's drug from another company or whatever, and they redid some studies. Well, they didn't redo the studies. It looked like they just tweaked the information from the studies. And there was like, yep, it's good. We X blah blah blah, and Kramer's like, are you sure? I don't want to see people get hurt. And he's like, no, it's promising, etc. So I would assume that day made a lot of people invest in something that wasn't solid. And the Alzheimer's is something that people fail most of the time with. So it's not very surprising that the drug failed. But my big issue, like him making, because people are like, oh, this is a pump and dump. They accuse it of being a pump and dump, that he had this drug, that he touted it, that they got all this money, but he insulated himself, so he made money, and a bunch of other people lost money. My question isn't so much about how he made money. My question is about how was he responsible with other people's money, and did he? And I believe, according to his other people have reported, I didn't look into the filing, I guess, myself, so just disclaimer. According to filings or stuff, it looks like they didn't, which his mom was on the report for the test. So why didn't they redo the Alzheimer's drug trial? Because the trial that they were touting on TV was the same trial where it had failed before, but it just looked like they tweaked some stuff and was like, oh, it's all good now because we tweaked some stuff, but they didn't redo the trial. So if you knew that it failed, why wouldn't you redo the trial before you went on TV and touted it and got people excited investing in it? So that's my question that I have for him, that I would like other people to answer. That particular phrasing of it, I haven't seen anyone really ask and address. And I don't know if there'd be a good answer for that. So yeah. um I don't think he had a great night. Now he was asked about he made a comment about gender identity, and he said that it was a disorder. And he got fact checked on that, but the fact check was really bizarre. Um let me just show you guys this really quick. Cuz the fact check basically says he's right. So I don't understand these people. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. That's what Vivek said. This is false. Being transgender is not a mental health disorder. Many transgender people experience gender dysphoria or psychological distress as a result of incongruence between their sex and their gender identity. Gender dysphoria is a diagnosis in the Psychiatric Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders and can be given to children, adolescents, or adults. So he's right. But you just want to say he was false. You just want to say he was wrong. You just don't want to admit it, right? So I've made this point many times. Like when people, I think it was Mike Pence who maybe said on the stage last night, he's like, way back when you had to ask a parent to give permission to give a child Tylenol, and now people are having gender plans. And I think that was Mike, maybe it was somebody else, but when you go that route and you're like, let's affirm, you are treating a mental disorder. And you can be offended by that, but you can't pretend like it's not a serious thing when you also say at the same time, well, if we don't affirm them, they're going to unalive themselves. So this is a very serious thing. So someone pointing out that it's a mental disorder, it's not meant to shame you out of existence, but it is pointing out an issue that we would like to help you with. But we just have a disagreement with how you have to make society bend to your will in order to get this treatment, because you are coping and you are masking, you're not treating if you are still that fragile to the point where if everyone doesn't comply with your sense of self, that you will self-harm. So people trying to come at Vivek for that is just crazy. He's correct. He's correct. So another fact check moment. Nikki Haley and Tim Scott got into it over, I kid you not, over some curtains, man. It was over some curtains.
Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador, you literally put $50,000 on curtains in a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
Just go to
and
YouTube
you want to know what that 10 cent was? When they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment and the companies wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will pass it if you will give us three.
All you have to do is go watch Nikki Haley on YouTube.
So, so people did report on the curtains thing before, but it was something that had to be corrected. So let me just pull that up for you guys really quick. Sorry, I just exited out of it accidentally. Okay, State Department spent $52,701 on curtains for residents of UN envoy. And then there was an editor's note. An earlier version of this article and headline created an unfair impression about who was responsible for the purchase in question. While Nikki R. Haley is the current ambassador of the United Nations, the decision on leasing the ambassador's residence and purchasing the curtains was made during the Obama administration, according to the current and former officials. The article should not have focused on Miss Haley, nor should a picture of her have been used. The article and headline have now been edited to reflect those concerns, and the picture has been removed. So the curtains back and forth was silly. But at one point in time, Dana, I think it was Dana, asked like Tim Scott to look at Nikki Haley, like, you're running, you've never had executive, well, maybe that was a different question, but they did ask him like at one point, like, you've never had executive experience. And he answered that question like decently. But they said some different things about what he was doing in the Senate. And like, so why do you want to, like, in the real world, you probably would have been fired. Sometimes these Fox people are spicy, man. And but now you want a promotion. So look at Nikki Haley. They literally told him, look at Nikki Haley and make the case on why you should be promoted over her. And so he made a case for himself, and then she started like chopping him down. So he brought that back with the "you've never seen a federal dollar that you didn't like," which was probably a good line. But yeah, they went back and forth a minute for the curtains thing, and the curtains thing wasn't accurate. But Nikki Haley also lodged an attack at Ron DeSantis about fracking that wasn't it was a bit misleading. The Washington Post, I believe, did a fact check. They did a fact check on a couple different things, but they did go into it, which Ron's team obviously was fact checking and correcting the record on some stuff. So, because Ron DeSantis was like, there was the citizens actually voted on a ballot measure to stop fracking or something, and which is true, and that happened the day he got elected. That passed in the midterms in 2018. So the executive orders or whatever he was issuing regarding that issue was aligned with the will of the people that's within like the Constitution, I believe, of Florida. So miss there. Let me see if I can find it, go through their fact check really quick. Here we go. Ron DeSantis is against fracking. He's against drilling. He's been against you did it every he always talks about what happens on day one. He always talks about what's gonna happen on day one. You better watch out, because what happens on day two is when you're in trouble. Day two in Florida, you ban fracking, you ban offshore drilling. And I thought the you better watch out for what happens on day two was I guess a good kind of line, because he's like on day one. So but she's wrong here. So this is from the Washington Post. This is complicated, but Haley's framing is misleading. Running for president, Ron DeSantis has advocated for fracking. He has opposed it in Florida. When he ran for governor, he pledged to pass legislation that bans fracking in the state. In November 2018, Florida voters passed a constitutional amendment that banned drilling under Florida's waters, a stance supported by many of the state's Republicans, but it did not mention fracking. 2 days into his term, on January 10th, 2019, DeSantis signed an executive order that implemented the measure. The order directed the Department of Environmental Protection to take necessary actions to adamantly oppose all offshore oil and gas activities off every coast in Florida and hydraulic fracturing in Florida. In effect, according to PolitiFact, that has meant no oil and gas permit authorizing hydraulic fracturing has been issued during his term as governor. Tangling with DeSantis, Haley twice made a statement that was flat wrong. You banned it before they voted, because he did bring up the measure, and she pushed back. The vote on the amendment took place before DeSantis was elected, which is true. DeSantis has not yet fulfilled his pledge to pass legislation that would ban fracking. As a member of Congress in 2013, DeSantis voted for a bill that would prohibit the Department of Interior from imposing federal rules and regulations on states' fracking operations, in effect deferring to state rules. So not all people are for fracking. It's not going to be great everywhere that you do it. So people, including Republicans of Florida, have different thoughts about it. Again, they have whatever their ballot measure was. So that was I don't know how many people were going to be influenced by that, but that was a hit that wasn't quite accurate from Nikki Haley there. Let me see what else. There was the talk about abortion. It was brought up about the midterms and how it could be a ballot measure in Arizona. And so DeSantis stood up for state legislation, and he also said, I don't believe that this was the fault of the midterms. And so he had a good response that's going around. So I want to show that.
States. Abortion was on the ballot in 6 states in 2022. Republicans lost all of them. Next year, abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona. That is a must-win state. Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes. We were winning places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible because we were leading with purpose and conviction. I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was a quote where it says, every single person has purpose and worth. We're better off when everybody counts. And I think we should stand for what we believe in. I think we should hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is infanticide, and that is wrong.
Let me ask Governor Christie. Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans...
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, I didn't catch that at the end. I think Tim Scott asked him, like, would you sign a 15-week limit? And he said he will. I think that's what he said at the end there. I'm not gonna play the whole video to see that again, but I think that's because I didn't catch that before. So before it seemed like he wasn't going to he was dodging on whether he would sign something federally. And he said that he would support pro-life states. So that was kind of news. Yeah, but Trump of course made comments about 6-week bills, like one that was enacted in Florida, and he has been doubling down. He said it was terrible. And which he had kind of said that before some months back, and he said some people say it's terrible what he did, and at the time some people were coming out attacking Trump for it, and I stuck up for him at the time, so I don't appreciate him wasting my charitable opinion of him, because but he was throwing, like, some people say, it's terrible, but I guess he was testing that waters with an opinion that he was going to double down on an attack on Ron. But I was like, well, he didn't say that. He's just saying that some other people are saying that it's terrible. And I guess I shouldn't have took up for him. But but I was just trying to be accurate with what he said. Now his opinion is it's terrible. Even though the Florida bill has the exceptions that Trump says that you need. And Trump has not, he was asked about a 15-week ban in an interview. He would not commit to 15. So I have a concern. Because he really wants to make a deal. He said he wants to make a deal and he wants there to be peace about the issue. So if he thinks 6 weeks is terrible, and he won't commit to 15, Is he basically, now some people think Roe v. Wade is just like up to the point of viability, or or 24 weeks or something, I think is what people have in their head. Roe v. Wade it stops states from protecting babies basically up to the point of viability, and then but it still allowed abortion after the point of viability. But my concern is that Trump will basically make a deal with the Democrats and say you got to allow it up to the point of viability. I have a concern that he's willing to make that deal, because if he desperately wants to make that deal, Democrats would have no reason whatsoever to make a deal with him, because they do want abortion up until the moment of birth. And that's not an exaggeration, though Washington Post also tried to fact check Ron DeSantis with it. They're like, well, let me just read what they said, actually. Because it's silly. I didn't think we would go over an hour today, but I guess we're going to do it. Okay, so they said, this is a common Republican talking point, because it's true, that Democrats support nationwide abortion on demand up until the moment of birth, because it's true. But DeSantis amps it up by calling it infanticide. The implication is that late-term abortions are common. That's not what he said. That's not what he said. He said that's what they're for, and it's true. and that they are routinely accepted by Democrats, by the Democrats who are in office in Congress, making the laws and stuff, in the House Senates and all that stuff. And I mean, in state legislature and stuff. Yeah, the people you elect, go ask them. Go ask a Democrat who they're pro-life Democrats. They're out there, okay? They exist. I just want to throw it out there. However, go ask a Democrat, do you believe that healthy women should have the right to abort healthy, viable babies? Don't say up until the time of birth. They'll just dismiss you. Ask that question. They need to reframe this. And DeSantis people, Vivek's people, whoever's out there, they need to frame this, because people are just like, oh, time of birth, that doesn't happen. They would just induce. That's silly. As if we didn't need to pass a partial birth abortion ban in this country, where you start delivering it and then you sever the baby's spine. As if that wasn't a thing that Hillary Clinton literally defended on the debate stage when she debated Donald Trump in 2016. Okay? So stop screwing with us. Stop screwing with us. But anyway, just rephrase it. Just say, do you believe that healthy women should be able to abort healthy, viable babies? They won't want to answer that question, but it's more specific. But then they'll probably still try to fact check and say, well, they make it seem like it's common. We're talking about tens of thousands, at least 10,000 plus babies a year. That's a lot. That's a lot. How many is too many in your opinion? What's a lot to you? Statistically compared, like, I guess it's 1.3% they keep saying or something. However, it's when you have like about 1 million abortions, when you get up to quite that high a year, it's still a pretty big number. It's still a pretty big number. Let me continue reading the fact check. The reality, according to federal and state data, is that abortions past the point of viability are extremely rare. No one cares. When they do happen, they often involve painful, emotional, and even moral decisions. That doesn't mean that they're necessary. There are abortions that are early, that are late, or whatever, that can have deep emotional issues and reasons. Women don't. There are women who definitely say, if I get pregnant, I'm gonna have an abortion, and are like in their mind like preparing for like birth control. Which most reasons are for birth control, even if they're like sad, but most of them are for birth control. But even those women will still be upset and torn about it. Just because you're broken up about it doesn't make it right. Now, if we're talking about like fetal anomaly or incompatible with life, or that they're going to die shortly after birth, like eugenics sort of arguments and stuff, that happens rarely, but that's not the only reason why these women do abort healthy fetuses. They do. And there's studies, they've reported it in the Washington Post. I've seen it. So this whole like, and it happens rarely, and it's always for these emotional reasons. Stop it. I've never heard a woman talk about her abortion where it wasn't emotional. Even women who are very hardened and trying to take a route where they kind of make it seem like it wasn't a big deal, you can still hear the emotion within them. It's women don't wake up and say, I feel like having a gag this afternoon, let me get an abortion. That's not what it's like. But just because it's emotional doesn't mean that it's right, and doesn't mean you should be allowed to kill your baby. About 2/3 of abortions occur at 8 weeks of pregnancy. Those are still bad, don't care. Or earlier, and nearly 90% take place in the first 12 weeks, or within the definition of the first trimester, according to the estimates by the Guttmacher Institute, which favors abortion rights. About 5.5% of abortions take place after 15 weeks, and just 1.3% after 21 weeks or longer. Again, that's a pretty big number when you have about a million abortions a year, or 930,000, whatever. It's high. It's high. Increasingly, there is a period when premature birth and late abortions begin to overlap. In 2021, the CDC recorded almost 22,000 births between 20 and 27 weeks. Babies born before 25 weeks are considered extremely preterm, with vital organs such as heart, lungs, and brain very immature, but the survival rate has climbed to 30% for 22-week babies and 55% for 23-week babies, according to the 2022 study. Some of the states record whether a fetus was born alive during an abortion and whether efforts have been made to save it. 7 were born alive in Florida in 2022, 9 in Arizona in 2020, 1 in Texas in 2021, and 5 in Minnesota in 2021. A CDC study of 143 cases between 2003 and 2014 found that most died within hours, with only 4.2% surviving for more than 24 hours, which it may be one of the reasons that Republicans, in the Bush age, he did sign a bill that recognized the unborn persons who survive abortion as persons. And then this year, I don't see this in the fact check, by the way. This year, Democrats in the House voted to not demand, not mandate medical care for babies that survive abortions. That was this year. Senator Fetterman said he believes in no limitations. The mayor of New York says he believes in no limitations. Hillary Clinton said hours before your due date, you still don't have any rights. Beto O'Rourke was asked by a child the day before I was born, did I have value? He said, that's not your decision to make. So stop pretending like Democrats don't support this. Just stop. These late term abortions is like, if you take out, you're getting relative to like gun, homicides and stuff. If you take out like unaliving yourself and other stuff like that. So just stop. Anyway, as I said, Trump is doubling down. There's this section of this interview that I want to show you guys. But by the way, Chris Christie was asked a question as well about this issue, and I don't have the clip for him, but I do want to give him some credit. And he said in New Jersey, he vetoed like funding for Planned Parenthood and all that stuff, like again and again and again. He said what you need is someone who can make the case for these principles. And I don't know if Chris Christie's that guy, but but I agree with him that you do need people to make the case, because they're like, well, why did these things fail in different states? Because you do need someone to make the case. You guys know that I was very passionate about trying to stop Prop 3 in Michigan. And there's a lot of people who were very passionate about trying to stop it, but they had a bigger machine than we did. They had more funding than we did. And some of the messaging was bad on our side. Like, there was these billboards that were like, Prop 3, it's too extreme, it's too confusing. And people are laughing like, I'm not confused. You guys are confused. Like, that's totally the wrong way to go about it. And the ballot itself, what people saw, like if they didn't have information about what was going in, what was actually on the ballot probably didn't sound too bad to a lot of people. And like, oh, that sounds fair, let me vote for it, not understanding all the repercussions. So I told people, I'm like, if we do not educate people before they get to the ballot, they're going to vote for this. I 100% knew it. And that's what happened. We didn't have. And at the same time, there was a lot of ads about Tudor Dixon. It was like, no exceptions. And they cut stuff. It was awful. It was like nonstop. So, and in Michigan, you're going from having this, abortion available to it not being available, like basically at all. So it was a big leap. So it's either this or it's nothing. So you got to look at each individual sort of circumstance on why it happened. You can't just write off like the whole entire movement or just say it's not worth defending life. And And you know what? It was even hard to pitch to some Republicans. I tried to pitch, like, I wrote out like a plan, like, this is why we need to get out this information. This is how we need to frame stuff, etc. And so someone tried to hook me up with someone to donate some money so we get some stuff on the air and like add different ads and stuff. And this was a Republican donor, and very adamantly he was like, no, I'm not for abortion, but I'm sick of this issue and I'm not donating money for it. Like it it was a hard hill to climb. So I don't think it's good for Trump to be the head of this issue, undermining the entire movement. And that's what he's doing. That's what he's been doing. And I'll have to go into it more at a later time, but I'm at least going to play this video, guys, for you. Because this is very, very, very frustrating.
I think something can happen. This is an issue that's been going on for 52 years. I was able to end it. That gave tremendous negotiating power to the pro-life movement, tremendous negotiating power, because they can't do the things that they used to be able to do. The pro-life was fighting it. We have these groups fighting this thing for so many decades, but it's exactly 52 years as a date in the not too distant future. And that's a long time. Everybody's raising money all the time. Everybody, I don't know, maybe it's some kind of a business. I don't know what's going on, but
it's a lot of money.
Everybody was amazed that I was able to do it. And I put them in a great negotiating position.
So, I agree with him that we have great negotiating power. And, the question is, should we support him when he's going around saying this stuff? And it's not personal, it's just business. That's his tagline for his show that I watched for years. And that's why, like, in January I went to the Student Summit for Life, why a lot of people, why he lost a straw poll there, because they didn't because a lot of them felt like he was going to lose the election if he was the nominee. So there's that. But since then he said some things that were disturbing after the midterm, and now he said the comments about the 6 weeks, and so now he's saying that it's a business. It's a business. Well, they're making a lot of money. Yeah, there are organizations that bring in money and raise a lot of money, etc. That's true. There's people who raise a lot to do a lot. That's true as well. But the point of bringing this up is to undermine people who are not going along with what he's saying, to undermine the conviction of the people who aren't jumping on his train and letting him lead. And I don't appreciate it. I was thinking about Hobby Lobby. I'm like, Hobby Lobby was willing to risk their entire business for this issue and went to the court. They were really willing to risk it. Like they had the mandates about like the contraception, the Plan B or whatever. They didn't want it. Which actually there's some, I don't know. I saw some people talk about some studies that they think that it actually doesn't cause the killing of like an embryo, but I have to look more into that. It was some interesting studies. I don't know if I believe it or not believe it, but just want to throw that out there. It was an interesting tidbit. But at the time, the possibility of it killing a fertilized egg was disturbing to the people at Hobby Lobby. So they as a family came together and they knew it was at stake, and they're like, let's fight this. We have to fight this. So they fought it. They took it to the Supreme Court. So don't question the convictions. There's grift everybody. There's grift everywhere. That's true in every industry, especially involving politics, and especially in Trump world. Oh my gosh. Especially in Trump world, there's a lot of grifters. There's a lot of people I could call out, including Trump. So I don't appreciate his rhetoric. I don't. So I think I've seen some high profile pro-life people really upset and speaking out against Trump and seem like they're on the DeSantis side. I will cover him fairly. I cannot at this moment support him in the primary. I just can't personally. Um I don't understand the doubling down of all this stuff. But back to my concern, I'm concerned that he'll want to make a deal with the Democrats and will be willing to basically allow like 90% of abortions to happen because there's no reason for Democrats to make a deal with him. Um it because if the deal is like 15 weeks like max or something, why would Democrats support that? Like if it wouldn't force other states to allow 15 weeks, up to 15 weeks. So they're not gonna support something that has a cutoff date but doesn't make all the other states allow it up to that certain point. So if he wants to make a deal, I'm concerned about what kind of deal he'll make because he didn't even say 15 weeks in his interviews. And by the way, on the campaign trail before, I think back in 2016, I think he said something about a 20 week. So I wish he was on the debate stage so he could be grilled about these things, and hopefully he'll get in front of some people who will grill him on the matter. Anyway, I guess I didn't mention Trump at all yet in Michigan, so I will just say I did watch his whole entire speech, and he was in a factory that wasn't union based, so people have pointed that out. Some people did point out that the reporters went to people who had UAW signs like Workers for Trump, and they didn't actually they weren't auto workers, and they weren't actually in the UAW. I don't know how many UAW people were probably there, because if you're in the UAW, you probably didn't want to be caught dead there. Not because you probably don't support the president, because you don't want anything to get back and you have a hard time at work or with the unions or other stuff like that. So I don't know how many people actually in the union showed up. But he really he said, "Oh, they're not going to endorse me, but you guys should endorse me. You really should endorse me." And so he really seems to want that support, but he kept saying like, it doesn't matter if you're arguing about your wages and marching out there and you want this increase or that increase. The way that Joe Biden is handling the economy and pushing these standards for electric vehicles and stuff, it's going to put a burden on these car companies that are going to force them to put jobs out in other countries, and it's going to bankrupt your business or whatever, and you're not going to have a job. So that was his pitch, and I think for the most part it was a pretty good pitch. He's still funny, making jokes and all that stuff. So decent rally. However, I was curious because he's back in Michigan, and I wanted to know if he would say anything about the 16 electors in Michigan. And I wrote a status about the debate on Facebook, and someone was like, "I watched the Trump rally. It was so great." And I was like, "Did he say anything about the electors?" And they're like, "Oh, I didn't watch the whole thing yet, but I'm sure he did." And so I was like, "Okay, let me watch this whole thing to see if he says anything." And I had to reply back to the person like, "He didn't say a peep." So you guys know that I know some of the people who were charged, and his speech was mostly focused on the auto workers and the economy and Biden. So I could give it to him for that, or slide, because it was a speech that was more focused than most of his other speeches when he goes to rallies. Though he did find the time to dig at Ron DeSantis. So there's that. So I'm going to take a little bit of my consideration back because he did make the time to come at DeSantis for some stuff. But he could have took the time to ream on Dana Nessel for some comments that she's made, kind of undercutting her own argument, going after them, because she's like, they're all brainwashed by Trump. They all actually believe that, and there needs to be some intent. The intent does matter with this particular crimes that they were charged with. So she is undercutting her case. But I have a really big problem because I know he's not helping them. At least last I talked to some of these electors and stuff, they're very much on their own, and some of them aren't holding it against them or anything like that. I think I'm more offended on their behalf. Um, but I know some of his lawyers were like, the plan's not going to work, and they went through it anyway. And these people are being charged, and they should be enjoying their retirement, and they're worried about going to jail. Now, since the AG is undercutting her case, and Ingham County didn't even thought it was, shouldn't even really be prosecuted because they didn't know how the state would meet their burden of proof. But she did anyway because it's a political thing, and I wish, since he was there, that he would have said something about it. So I take it pretty personal. And it's upsetting to me. So I watched the whole thing really to see if he was going to bring it up at all, and he didn't. But as far as like his digs at Biden, you make good digs at Biden, good jokes about him, you falling down and all that kind of stuff. He has great energy in a rally. People, they're fun to go to. They're very long. But I'm sure a lot of people who went there, maybe people who don't even still support him, went there and had a good time. But no, the unions are not going to endorse him. Biden is their guy. Biden is very much a union man, a pocketed person. So no, they're not going to support Trump. But he made some good there's some good lines, certainly. Anyway, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, different articles, different videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Cost to stream, cost to run my website, all the stuff, so you guys can support in that way. I do very much appreciate you. Check out different merchandise that we have also available at the store as well. Like we got the Black Tea mug here. We got the Constitution is a Glorious Liberty document. We got the My Money, My Business shirt here. I actually made that because of the abortion issue, because they're like, it's none of your business. I'm like, why do you want me to pay for it then? Which in Michigan, they are trying to get like taxpayer dollars to pay for it. So, which, absolutely knew that was going to happen after that ballot initiative passed. So word to the wise and the people of Ohio, they're going to, even if you think it's between a woman and her doctor, they don't think that. Abortion lobby doesn't actually think that. They think that everyone should celebrate it and be a part of it, and you should help pay for it and facilitate it stuff. That's what they actually think. So just a little warning, and check out my stuff on Amazon as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.